On Zombie Reddit, today's story is...
My wife wanted to make our marriage polygamous after 15 years together, but when I discovered the real reason behind her overtime, everything changed. Hello, Reddit community. I need to share my story with you. My wife, Ran 37, and I, Vaughn, 37, have been a couple since our high school days. We met when we were 15 and have been together ever since. It's as if we grew up together, discovering life step by step. After finishing high school, we both went to university, and a year after graduating, we got married. It was the easiest decision I ever made. We both got well-paid jobs. I started to build my professional career in my field, and a couple of years ago, I decided to start my own business. It required many sleepless nights, quite a bit of stress, and more coffee than I would like to admit, but now things are going quite well. Ren works as a marketing consultant. She has always shown great passion for her work and excels at what she does. She knows how to promote products, how to make a brand stand out, and she has that special mindset that makes everything fit together perfectly. I've always admired that quality in her. For 15 years, our marriage was strong. We had our good times and our bad times like any couple, but we were happy. We made time for each other, we traveled together, we enjoyed quiet weekends, and we spent our evenings watching programs or just talking about our day. It wasn't always exciting, but it was comfortable and safe. We were partners in everything. Everything changed when Ren started a new job last year. At first, I was excited for her. It was a great opportunity, a well-known company. They offered her an excellent salary. She was delighted, so naturally I supported her. But the job ended up absorbing her life completely. Suddenly, she was working impossible hours, early mornings, late nights, weekends. She was always busy. At first, I told myself it was normal. It was a new job and she wanted to prove herself. I understood how important it was to her, and I didn't want to be the one to complain. But as the weeks turned into months, the situation only got worse. She started bringing work home, taking calls during dinner, answering emails at midnight. She barely had time for anything else. Our nightly routine disappeared. We no longer sat together on the sofa. We didn't talk about our day. We didn't watch movie marathons on weekends. I went to sleep alone almost every night. And when she finally joined me, she was too exhausted to even talk. I tried to be understanding. I really did. I kept telling myself it was a temporary situation, that once she got settled, things would improve. But they didn't. I started to worry about her health. She wasn't eating properly, always eating in a hurry or skipping meals. She wasn't getting enough sleep, waking up tired and drinking coffee like it was water. She barely had time to do anything outside of work. I mentioned it a few times, gently at first. I told her I was worried about her, that maybe she should take things more calmly, that she didn't need to push herself so hard. I even suggested that if the work was too much, she could resign and take a break. We were financially stable. She didn't need to work herself to the point of exhaustion. She always dismissed my concerns. She said she loved her job, that it was challenging, exciting, and that she was learning a lot. She told me she had no intention of quitting, and she expressed it with such firmness that I didn't insist any further. I wanted to respect her decision, but the more time passed, the more I felt I was losing her. I tried to be patient. I kept telling myself it was just a phase. Deep down, I was starting to feel alone in our marriage. But about 7 months ago, my world was turned upside down when Ren told me he wanted to turn our marriage into a polygamous relationship. At first, I thought I had heard wrong, or that maybe he was joking, but no, he was completely serious. I felt like the ground had disappeared from under my feet. It was like a bomb had been dropped on me. I didn't even know how to process it. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to react. My mind was racing, and I could hardly understand why he was saying these things. He explained that he had never been with anyone but me, and that he had started to feel like he was missing out on experiences. I just sat there, trying to understand what he meant. I had always seen us as an unbreakable unit, the two of us against the world, you know? We had been together for so long, and the idea that he was now questioning everything about our relationship, I felt like someone had hit me with a ton of bricks. I asked him where all this was coming from. I needed to know. I thought maybe there was some problem that had built up over time, or maybe something had happened that I didn't know about. He told me it wasn't about anything in particular. He explained that he had just been reading about polygamy and thought it might be something we should try. I was stunned. I couldn't understand it. I've heard of people in open relationships, polyamory, and similar concepts, but I never imagined in a million years that Ren would want that for us. I asked her again, more urgently, if she was sure, if she had someone specific in mind. She denied it. There was no one else. It was just an idea she had been considering. I wanted to believe her, but at that moment I didn't know what to think. I kept wondering why now. Why would she want this after all these years of happiness together? Of it just being the two of us, the idea of her with someone else, being intimate with another man, was something I simply couldn't get my head around. I told her in as honest a way as possible that I wasn't interested in something like that. I explained that the idea of her with another man would destroy me. It was the truth. And I didn't want to hide it from her. I didn't want to soften my feelings because I was hurt, confused, and scared. She assured me that it would be purely physical, that it wouldn't change our emotional connection, that she would still be my wife. She guaranteed that nothing would change between us, that she just wanted to experience something different. But honestly, the more I explained it, the less sense it made to me. If she still loved me, why did she need something else? I kept wondering if I wasn't enough. If there was something I wasn't doing right or something she needed that I wasn't providing. She was pushing so hard, saying it was something she wanted to try, that I asked her directly if there was anyone specific in mind. Was there anyone she was interested in? Someone she was already involved with? She insisted that there wasn't, that it was just a thought, something she was exploring in her mind. But no matter how much she tried to reassure me, I couldn't help feeling this deep sense of unease. I felt that there was something more to the story and that she wasn't telling me the whole truth. She went to sleep after that and I tried to rest too, but I just couldn't. I lay awake for hours thinking, going over the conversation again and again in my mind. I couldn't stop asking myself, what did I do wrong? Why would Ren suddenly want this? Why was it happening now after so many years of happiness together? I started to question everything. I felt terribly alone with my thoughts. I wondered if I had overlooked something important. If there had been signs that I hadn't noticed, or if maybe she was simply unhappy and I hadn't noticed. I've heard about couples experimenting with different dynamics in their relationships. Open relationships, polyamory, all those alternatives. But I never thought it would be yes. I thought Ren and I were solid. We had built this life together and I simply couldn't imagine it with anyone else. I have always been monogamous and the idea of sharing her, even if it was only physically, was not at all acceptable to me. I never understood how some people could do that. How do you go from being the only one someone wants to be with to suddenly sharing them with someone else? The whole concept just didn't make sense to me. But a few weeks later, Ren brought it up again, and this time she was more direct. She told me without hesitation that she still wanted to be a polygamist and that I had to accept it or she would have to consider different options. The way she put it, with practically no emotion, as if it were just another decision we had to make. It hit me like a punch in the stomach. It seemed like she had already made up her mind and I was being presented with an ultimatum. I asked her what she meant by different options. Was she talking about divorce? Was she saying that if I couldn't accept this, our marriage would be over? She replied that I was intelligent enough to understand what she meant, and that's when it hit me. I was at a crossroads and didn't know which way to turn. I didn't want to lose her, but at the same time I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was slipping through my fingers. Our marriage, our life together, everything seemed to be crumbling in front of me, and I had no idea how to fix it. I thought about it deeply and in the end I felt I had no choice. This was not something I could just ignore and it was not something I could accept. I couldn't imagine a life where Ren was with someone else. No matter how I justified it, I couldn't live with the idea of sharing her and I wasn't sure if I could trust her again. The connection we had, the life we built, it felt like it was being torn apart and I didn't know how to put it back together. So I packed my things and left. I didn't know exactly where I was going initially, but I knew I couldn't stay. I needed space to think, to breathe and to figure out what I really wanted. I didn't want to make any rash decisions. I needed time to process everything, to determine if there was a way forward or if this was the end for us. I didn't want to say goodbye, but I felt like I had no choice. Ren continued to call me repeatedly after I left. I didn't answer. But she didn't give up. She kept calling, sending messages, and finally showed up at the hotel where I was staying. I wasn't expecting her to come and get me and, honestly, I didn't know what to think when I saw her standing there. I was completely exhausted by the emotional roller coaster of the last few days and I really didn't want to see her, but I also knew we needed to talk. Part of me hoped that she had come to her senses and that maybe, just maybe, she was realizing how absurd it all sounded. But that wasn't the case. She came up to me and said, "We need to talk. I think we can fix this." I replied in the firmest voice I could, "I don't want to talk, not like this." But she insisted, "We need to talk. I need to explain everything to you." I didn't want to hear any more justifications, but I knew I couldn't just walk away without listening to her, so reluctantly I agreed. She began by saying that she didn't want to hurt me, but that she just wanted to enjoy the thrill of being a polygamist for a while. The idea that she needed some kind of thrill outside of our marriage felt like a slap in the face. I couldn't understand how she could say this after so many years together. After everything we had built, it didn't make sense to me, and I asked her directly, "Who exactly are you planning to be a polygamist with?" I needed to know. I needed to understand how far this had gone. She replied without a second's hesitation. She told me it was her boss. I felt my stomach churn. She explained that she had been working closely with him for the past year and that they had grown closer. She said she couldn't control how she felt, that the attraction between them was undeniable. I felt a wave of nausea and had to steady myself. My mind was racing. She wasn't talking about just anyone. She was talking about her boss. The person she spent so much time with whom she worked late, with whom she developed projects. I felt betrayed in an indescribable way. She continued, "I want to enjoy the thrill of being your intimate partner, but I also want to stay married to you." I just stared at her, unable to respond initially. How could she say that? How could she even consider it acceptable to ask me for something like that? My mind raced as I tried to process it all, but I couldn't. I kept thinking of all the times over the last year when she had been distant, when she worked late and didn't have time for me. I thought she was just busy with her job. But now it all made sense in the worst possible way. I asked her directly, "Is this why you've been so busy with work? Is this why you've ignored me for the last year?" She nodded and explained that at first it was because she was trying to impress everyone at her new job. She said she was only focused on proving herself, but then things changed. She and her boss started to work more closely on different projects, and that's when the attraction arose. She assured me that she loved me, but that she couldn't stop thinking about him. I wanted to scream, but I could only sit there in disbelief as she continued to talk. She said that since her boss was also interested in her, she thought that polygamy would be the best way to make it work. I couldn't even process her words. I just stood there in a daze. This was the woman I loved, the person I thought I knew better than anyone, and she was standing in front of me telling me that she loved me as much as she loved another man. The casual way she said it made me feel like I was just a replacement in her life. I was supposed to accept that she wanted more, that I should share her, and I couldn't understand it. I told her as calmly as I could that I didn't want to be part of this. I didn't want to share her. I didn't want a life where we weren't exclusive. I told her, "You can't have both, not with me. I won't do this." She didn't seem to take it well and tried to persuade me, trying to convince me that nothing would change between us, and that I could do the same if I wanted to. She suggested that we could both have whatever we wanted, but I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't imagine a life where we both had to divide ourselves between each other and other people. That wasn't love to me. That wasn't marriage. It was just a twisted game, and I wasn't willing to play. I told her, "This is sick. This conversation is making me sick." I had tried to stay strong, to control my emotions, but I couldn't anymore. I asked her to leave. I couldn't be around her, not after everything she had said. For the time being, we decided that we would simply be separated. It seemed like the right thing to do at the time, but honestly, after 15 years of marriage, starting the divorce proceedings was more difficult than I expected. We didn't rush into anything, and it was a couple of months before I even considered what the next step for us would be. Yesterday I got a call from Ren. He said he needed to talk to me, and honestly, I didn't know what to expect. I thought maybe he wanted to discuss starting divorce proceedings. Maybe there was something he needed to express. I wasn't prepared for what he had to say to me, but I thought we should meet up so we could have a civilized conversation. He also needed to pick up some things from the house, so it made sense to meet there. When I arrived, Ren was at the door, showing a mixture of stress and relief. She said, "Thank God you're here. Things are out of control at work." I could see the exhaustion in her eyes, and part of me felt sorry for her. We had both been through so much in the last few months, and it was hard to see her like that. But at the same time, I was still angry and hurt by everything that had happened, so I kept my distance. I asked her what had happened, and she explained that she could be fired for a mistake. Apparently, she had accidentally sent the wrong file to a client, causing problems at an event. She said her boss was furious, and that she now had a meeting scheduled with human resources in a few days. I listened to her talk, but I couldn't help feeling somewhat indifferent to the situation. I asked her, "The same boss who was interested in you and for whom you wanted to be a polygamist?" She nodded, and I could see the embarrassment on her face. She admitted that things didn't work out with him. Apparently, he wasn't interested in her at all, and when she made a pass at him, he was surprised. She told him how unprofessional his behavior was, and after that, things became extremely awkward between them. She said that she was now about to lose her job, and everything was falling apart. She was there telling me how everything was going wrong, how she had no one to talk to, and it was clear that she was distressed, but I was still so hurt by everything she had done. I couldn't feel sorry for her. It was hard enough to process my own situation without having to deal with her problems as well, and then as she was talking, she tried to hug me. I gently pushed her away, trying to control my emotions, and asked her, "Is this really why you called me? To talk about your work?" She seemed puzzled, as if she expected more understanding, but I couldn't offer it. I wasn't there to solve her problems. I told her I had come to collect my belongings and leave, as we had agreed. She asked me what I needed. I explained that I was going skiing with some friends and needed my equipment. It wasn't the most important thing on my mind, but I had plans and I wasn't going to cancel them just because she was in crisis. But Ren didn't seem to understand. She started to reproach me for how selfish I was for leaving while she was facing so much stress. She said it wasn't fair for me to abandon her when everything in her life was falling apart. I was perplexed for a moment, but I stood my ground. I told her, "These are the consequences of your actions. You need to face them." I couldn't soften the situation. She had made decisions that had led her here, and now she had to face the consequences. I couldn't carry her problems anymore. After collecting my equipment, I left the house trying to put distance between us, but that wasn't the end of it. Things got even more complicated when our children got involved. Today, my daughter called me and told me that Ren had been telling her and my son things that seemed inappropriate to me. My daughter told me that Mom had commented that I had changed and that I no longer cared about her. She said she didn't understand why we had separated, but that Mom just needed someone to talk to. Our children were unaware of what was really going on between Ren and I. We hadn't revealed the truth behind our separation to them, mainly because I didn't want to burden them with adult problems. My daughter suggested that if I could talk to Ren, it would be very helpful. She said Ren just needed someone to listen to her. Someone who could understand. I didn't know how to respond. On the one hand, I wanted to help. I didn't want my children to feel trapped in the middle of this situation. On the other hand, I was still deeply hurt by everything that had happened. I didn't know if I could put myself in a position where I would have to talk to Ren again, let alone offer her any kind of support. I told my daughter that I would consider it, but I don't know what to do. I'm turning to you, Reddit. What should I do? Should I talk to Ren? Should I try to fix things for the sake of my children? Or should I continue to keep my distance and let her handle her problems on her own? I just don't know what to do. Help me. Update 1. Hi everyone. I want to thank you for your kind comments and advice. They really mean a lot to me. I wanted to share what's been happening. Ren was finally fired. In retrospect, I think her dismissal was partly due to how she made advances on her boss. Her boss is also married, and I can't help wondering if he was looking for a reason to fire her. The whole thing seemed very unprofessional and, honestly, I don't understand why Ren thought it was a good idea, but that's the way it is. I still think she's a talented person. I have no doubt she'll find another job soon. I know she'll bounce back because she's smart and hardworking, but for now she's taking some time off to figure things out. In the meantime, I have been looking after the children during this period while Ren determines her next steps. I am doing my best to keep things as normal as possible for them. They have been asking about her and why we are no longer together. Children pick up on everything, and no matter how much you try to protect them, they eventually start to connect the pieces. For now, we just explain that Ren and I have grown apart. I don't think they need to know the whole truth. They are still young, and this is hard enough for them. I don't want to cause them unnecessary stress by explaining the specific details of what happened. They don't need to know about the polygamy issue or how Ren's relationship with his boss played into all this. It's too complex for them to understand. I've tried to keep things as normal as possible. I'm doing more activities with them, taking them out, spending more time at home. I know I should be there for them, especially during this period. They are the ones who are really going through a difficult time. I've had some heart-to-heart talks with my daughter, especially as she seems to be the one who feels most confused and upset by the whole situation. I've also tried to keep busy. I have focused more on work and spending time with the children to take my mind off of it all. Anyway, that's how things are at the moment. I will keep you posted, but for now, I'm just focusing on the children and trying to take care of myself. Update 2. Hi everyone. I know it's been 3 months since the last update, but honestly, not much has changed. Things have settled into a routine, at least as far as the children are concerned. They have been alternating between my old and new residences, and we have been following the joint custody agreement. It's not perfect, but it has been manageable. The children are adjusting, although I can tell that they are still finding it hard to come to terms with all of this. I have kept my distance from Ren since it all happened. I honestly don't know how to be around her without feeling angry and hurt, But last week, I finally started the divorce proceedings. I felt it was important to do this in person, not only for the children, but to get some closure, although I wasn't sure I was prepared for the emotional cost. So I spoke to Ren while I was dropping the kids off. As soon as I told her that I had started the process, she started crying instantly. I wasn't expecting that reaction. I know she's been affected by everything, but seeing her break down like that hit me harder than I anticipated. She started to apologize repeatedly, expressing how sorry she was for all the chaos she had caused. But that didn't change anything. It was the first time I had heard her express regret for the mess she had made, and honestly, I didn't know how to react. I wasn't sure if I wanted to hear it. I just stood there, paralyzed, watching her cry. She pleaded with me to reconsider, saying, "Don't do this, we can work it out." But I couldn't budge. We were already done. The divorce was just a formality at this point. I felt there was no going back. Even when she cried and apologized, I told her that we were past the point of fixing things. The damage was done and there was no way to repair it. It was difficult to express, but I meant it. She continued to cry, and I knew I had to leave before I said something I might regret, so I walked away. I won't lie. That moment affected me more than I expected. Seeing her cry and hearing her express her regret brought back a lot of emotions. I thought I had moved on, but in that moment I realized that I still loved her. I loved her with all my being. I still do. I loved her intelligence and determination. Her unapologetic authenticity. I loved everything about the woman I married, but the person she had become was not the same. She was not the woman I fell in love with. I don't have many friends with whom to talk about all this. The few people I do talk to, I don't feel I can open up to completely. How do you even begin to explain the whole polygamy situation to your friends? I can't even understand it myself, let alone discuss it with others. I just feel ashamed, as if I had somehow failed to anticipate it, so I guess this space has become the only place where I can be totally honest. You guys have been incredibly understanding, and it's honestly the only reason I've managed to keep any sanity through all of this. So thanks for listening. I don't know what I would do without this community. Update 3. Hi everyone, this one will be brief, but I finally did it. I am officially divorced. It has been a long and complicated road, and I honestly didn't know when or if I would get to this point. There is still a lot to process, but I just wanted to update you, especially since you have been so supportive throughout this whole process.